What if following your children cost you everything? What if I told you that some of the deepest regrets in old age don't come from illness or poverty or even loneliness, but from love? Not the kind of love that fades or disappoints, but the kind that gives too much. The love that sacrifices without pause, without limits. The love that says, I'll sell my house, I'll leave the land I've known all my life, just so I can be closer to my children. So I can help. So I can give. If you are over 50 and have ever considered moving in with your children, or giving up your home for their comfort, I urge you to pause whatever you're doing. Sit down with me. Because this may be one of the most important conversations of your later years. You see, in my years as a specialist in elder care and aging psychology, I've spoken with hundreds of older adults across America. Many of them are like you, loving parents, generous grandparents. People who believe that their greatest joy in life comes from giving to their children. And while that love is noble, sometimes it can come at a devastating cost. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore a quiet, often invisible truth: how giving everything for our children, including our homes, our money, and our independence, can slowly strip us of our joy, our freedom, and even our dignity. This video is not here to tell you what to do. It's here to help you reflect, to offer perspective, and perhaps to help you make one of the most important choices of your later life consciously, wisely, and with love for yourself as much as for your children. So please, stay with us until the very end. And if you believe these conversations matter, if you know someone who might need to hear this too, subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to keep speaking these quiet truths that so many older adults feel, but rarely say aloud. Now, let's begin. The house we sold, the life we lost. Let me tell you about someone I met not long ago. His name is Mr. Harold Tran. He's 74 years old. A retired school teacher from a quiet rural town in Georgia. For most of his life, Harold lived in the same wooden house where he and his wife, Evelyn, raised their 2 sons. The house sat on a modest plot of land with a garden out back, fruit trees on either side, and a small wooden bench on the porch where Harold used to drink tea every morning at sunrise. When his sons went off to college in Atlanta, Harold and Evelyn were proud. They knew city life would be expensive, but they wanted the best for their children. After graduation, both boys decided to stay in the city, and soon after, they started their own families. At first, Harold and Evelyn would visit once or twice a month, bringing home-cooked meals and gifts for their grandkids. But over time, as their sons juggled work, rising rent, and childcare costs, the visits turned into phone calls that often began with, "Dad, we need a little help." And Harold helped. Of course he did. He sent money. He offered to babysit. And eventually, he made a decision that felt, in his heart, like the most loving one he could make. He sold the house. He and Evelyn packed up 40 years of memories. The garden tools. The family photos. The worn-out rocking chair. And they moved into a small 2-bedroom condo in downtown Atlanta to live with their eldest son's family. "I thought we'd all be closer," he told me. "I thought it would be joyful like a big, happy family." But reality felt different. Gone were the peaceful mornings. Gone was the garden, the space, the silence. In its place came noise, crowded spaces, and the quiet discomfort of not having a place to call his own. He had given up his home, but also, without fully realizing it, he had given up his autonomy. Evelyn found it hard to adjust. She missed the neighbors who used to drop by for tea. She missed her little herb garden. And most of all, she missed the sense of being needed in her own life, not just someone who was helping out in someone else's. Then, 2 years ago, Evelyn got sick. A quiet battle with cancer began. And as Harold took her to appointments and managed her care from the condo's tiny spare room, he started to feel something he had never felt before. Not just grief, but regret. "We weren't meant to end our lives this way," he said quietly, as we sat in a park nearby. "We left our home, but we also left the part of ourselves that still had joy." When Evelyn passed away, the grief was deep. But so was the emptiness of having nowhere to return to, no place that felt like home. The condo belonged to his son. The city felt foreign. And though he was surrounded by family, he felt completely alone. I've heard this story more times than I can count. Different names. Different cities. But always the same heartache. When older adults give up everything, their homes, their land, their savings in the name of love, they often do so believing they are building a bridge between generations. But sometimes they are digging a hole beneath their own feet. And the tragedy is they often don't realize it until it's too late. When love becomes a silent sacrifice. In Western cultures, there's a clear transition that happens when children reach adulthood. Once they turn 18, parents are expected socially and emotionally to begin letting go. Children are taught to leave the nest, to stand on their own, and to make their way in the world. And parents, in turn, begin reclaiming their time. They travel. They rest. They rediscover the dreams they once set aside. But in many Eastern traditions, especially among immigrant families here in America, there's a different rhythm to love. Parents raise their children not just to independence, but with a quiet promise of lifelong care. They continue to give through advice, through food, through babysitting. And sometimes, even through the very roofs over their heads. It's not wrong. In fact, it comes from a beautiful place. A place of loyalty, devotion, and deep family bonds. But here's where the danger lies, when that love is not balanced with boundaries. You see, love without limits is not a gift. It's a sacrifice. And when you give too much, without protecting even a corner of your own world, you risk fading into the background of someone else's life. I've spoken with women who gave up their homes so their daughters could have a better apartment. Men who cashed out their retirement savings to pay off their sons' debts. Grandparents who moved into crowded condos just so they could pick up their grandchildren from school. They all did it for love. But when I asked, "Do you feel happier now?" many of them fell silent. Some smiled softly and said, "As long as the kids are happy, that's all that matters." But others looked away, tears quietly forming, and whispered, "I don't know who I am anymore." Because the truth is, you can love your children deeply and still need a life of your own. You can support them, encourage them, be there for them, and still say, "I need my own space. I need to protect my peace." There's no selfishness in that. Only wisdom. In fact, one of the greatest gifts we can give our children is showing them how to grow old with dignity, not dependency. How to hold space for love, but also for individuality. How to age not as a burden but as a teacher, a guide, a person still fully alive. And it starts with the courage to ask, have I given too much of myself away? The silent cost of sacrifice. There's something many people don't realize about growing old in someone else's home. It's not the noise or the lack of space that wears you down. It's the silence. It's the way no one asks how you slept. The way your opinions go unheard at dinner. The way the walls no longer smell like your memories. The way you tiptoe around your own life, afraid to disturb a rhythm that no longer belongs to you. I remember visiting Mr. Harold again a few months after his wife had passed. He invited me up to the condo. It was neat. Clean. Almost too clean. The kind of clean that feels like everything must stay in its place because nothing truly belongs to you. He showed me the tiny balcony where he kept 2 potted plants, remnants of the garden he once loved. He said he watered them every morning. That's how he began his day. Not because the plants needed him, but because he needed something to wake up for. I miss the wind, he told me softly. I miss the smell of soil. And neighbors knocking on the door just to say hello. And then he paused. But mostly, I miss her. And I miss who I was when I was with her. Grief is a heavy thing. But it becomes heavier when you have no roots left, when there's nowhere familiar to return to, nowhere that feels like home. This is one of the greatest and most overlooked consequences of selling your house to live with your children. It's not just the loss of a building. It's the loss of self. When you no longer have a space that is yours, truly yours, you lose a piece of your identity. Your habits change. Your voice softens. Your needs come second. And slowly, day by day, you begin to disappear in the very place you once thought would bring you joy. Many older adults who live with their children will never say these things out loud. They don't want to cause conflict. They don't want to be ungrateful. But I've seen it too often. The forced smiles. The long stares out the window. The walks alone in the park. The ache of being surrounded by family and still feeling invisible. It's not the city that drains them. It's not the smaller apartment or the busier schedule. It's the quiet realization that they are no longer the authors of their own lives. And when that realization sets in, it doesn't matter how beautiful the condo is. It doesn't matter how fancy the dinner table. What matters is that somewhere, in the name of love, they gave away their last space of freedom. Helping without losing yourself. Now, let's be clear, wanting to help your children is a beautiful instinct. It's human. It's natural. It's what most loving parents do, even long after their kids are grown. But helping should never mean losing yourself. And that's where we must pause and reflect. Because what starts as support can quietly become surrender. Especially when you give up your home, your savings, or your independence without protecting a part of it for yourself. So, what does it look like to help wisely? To give from love, but with boundaries. It begins with financial independence. As a specialist in senior well-being, I always encourage older adults to keep one space that is fully their own, whether it's a small apartment, a country house, or even a mobile home. A place where you can go, rest, think, breathe, and just be yourself. This space isn't about pride. It's about peace. It's about having an option when life changes, when tensions rise, or when the dynamic with your children becomes more complicated than you expected. Because the truth is, as much as we love our children, we are not always meant to live with them. Different generations have different rhythms. What feels comfortable to them may feel exhausting to us. You wake early, they sleep late. You prefer quiet dinners, they host noisy gatherings. You want a garden, they prefer a Netflix night. These aren't conflicts. They are just life. But they become painful if you have no choice but to endure them. Now, some people might say, but what if I can't afford both? What if I sell my house to help my child buy theirs? And to that, I say, help within your means, but never at the cost of everything you have. If you want to support your children financially, consider giving them a loan with clear terms. Or a partial gift that still allows you to keep a safety net. A parent's job isn't to rescue their child from every struggle. It's to teach them how to walk through struggle with character, responsibility, and strength. Because here's a truth many don't say aloud. When parents give too much, children sometimes stop growing. They begin to expect. They begin to depend. And worst of all, they stop seeing the parent as a person with limits, needs, and dreams of their own. Helping wisely also means having honest conversations. Before you move in, talk about expectations. Will you be a guest? A caregiver? A live-in babysitter? Will you contribute financially? Will you have privacy? Will you have time for yourself? Put these questions on the table not to create distance, but to protect the love you already have. Because love, when unspoken, can turn into assumption. An assumption, over time, can turn into resentment. You still have a life to live. I want to say something now that I believe every older adult needs to hear: you still have a life to live. Even after retirement. Even after raising children. Even after giving so much. There is still music to be heard. Still laughter to be shared. Still sunlight to sit under and books to be read on quiet afternoons. Still time, precious time, that belongs only to you. And yet, so many seniors forget this. Not because they are weak. Not because they don't care about themselves. But because somewhere along the way, they were taught that love means putting yourself last. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. You can love your children without living for them. You can be present without being dependent. You can support without surrendering everything you've built. One of the greatest gifts of aging is clarity. You begin to see what truly matters. And for many, that clarity often comes too late, after the house is sold, after the money is gone, after the roots are pulled from the ground and there is no soil left to stand on. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose now. Today. You can choose to honor everything you've given and also honor what you still deserve. Because you've earned the right to rest. You've earned the right to say no. You've earned the right to keep something for yourself: your time, your space, your story. And if you've already made the decision to live with your children, that's okay. This isn't about guilt. This is about balance. You can still set healthy boundaries. You can still carve out sacred space through hobbies, friends, church, community centers. You can still create joy, even within a crowded home. But if you are still deciding if you are on the edge of selling your home, uprooting your life, or giving everything to your children, pause. Think. Ask yourself, what part of me will still belong to me when I do this? Because no matter how much you love your family, you still belong to yourself first. Where will you stand when the house is gone? So I ask you now, gently and sincerely, where will you stand when the house is gone? Not just the four walls and the roof, but the life within it. The memories, the rituals, the small, sacred routines that made each day yours. If you've already given it up, please don't carry shame. You did it out of love. And love, even when it hurts, is never wasted. But if you are still holding the key literally or metaphorically, may this be a moment to pause and ask, is it time to give everything away? Or is it time to keep something for myself? Because your story isn't over. Because you still have chapters left to write. Because aging should not mean erasing yourself, it should mean discovering a deeper, wiser version of you. And to the children watching this, those who love their aging parents but don't always know what they need. Understand this: your parents don't just need shelter. They need respect. They need space. They need to feel like they still matter. Let them rest. Let them choose. Let them grow old with dignity. And if they give you something, thank them. But never ask for it all. Because a parent's love is strong, but even the strongest love can break under the weight of sacrifice. Now, if this message spoke to you, even in a small way, I invite you to stay connected with us. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more stories and insights like this. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. And leave a comment below whether it's a memory, a thought, or a lesson from your own journey. We read every message. Because what you've lived through matters. Thank you for staying with us through this story. May your day be filled with peace, dignity, and all the love you deserve. And wherever you are, may you always find your way back to yourself. See you in the next video.